Welcome. Today, I want you to get ready with me. And we're not talking about fashion and putting on tie-dye. It is get ready with me as we launch a brand new campaign. I will frame it in today's video, putting together the foundations for a West Marches style campaign set in Shadowdark's brand new Western Reaches campaign setting. This will be on the longer side because it's a full workshop from the idea. I'll go through my Roll20 setup and everything I needed to do to get ready for that first game session and kick it off. So it'll be a little longer, but I'll talk about what happened, like why I get to start a new campaign right now. And everything in here is set up so you can absolutely steal pieces yourself, borrow all these ideas, launching a new campaign, soup to nuts. That's today's video. Let's go. Welcome to my channel. I'm John. This is a place I'm usually talking about Shadowdark or OSR stuff or TSR era D&D or sometimes a mix of all three. But I think the first question is, why am I launching a new campaign? Let's take a look at what's going on in my current campaigns. All right, so I'm not really a YouTuber. I am a referee first and foremost, and I typically run 2 campaigns, a weekly campaign and another one that goes maybe twice a month. I've been running a Curse of Strahd game for well over a year and a half. We're coming in on 2 years. The campaign is right near the end. It's been a pretty low effort campaign because once I converted it, it was very easy to run. We have great attendance. We're right now in the dying and the crying part where either we're going to have a TPK in one of the next 2 game sessions or the players will be victorious over Strahd. I do have some early videos at the start of my channel I'll link to at the end where I talked about how to convert a campaign like this to Shadowdark. So that's one. It's close to wrapping up. And then I was running a TSR-based game in the Grand Duchy of Karameikos. We had done Horror on the Hill, some other BX-type adventures. I'd created a conversion of the Isle of Dread. And that one just didn't develop flow. We really needed good attendance from the players. As we moved into summer, we lost several people and we've skipped months at a time. Finally, I got everyone together and said, guys, I think we need to change things up. We have a lot more people that are interested in playing in this game, but I need a structure that's a little bit more episodic. And that's what got us talking about resetting and doing a West Marches style. So I'm going to be launching 2 new campaigns. One started, we're going to be talking about it today, the West Marches style. My Strahd folks will be moving on to doing one of my home settings, the Black City. We'll talk about that near the end of the video. For the Strahd group, for the Dread group, I was looking for something that would be low effort for me, heavily rely on published materials, and set up so we could have this rotating cast of characters. So there's like, I don't know, 7 to 9 players that are interested, but they can't make every game session. And then how do we do it in a sandbox style? So first, let's walk through the foundations of what this new campaign will be about. So what did I pick? When I did a review of Stonehell, I don't know, a month or so ago, the idea stuck in my head. This would be a fantastic campaign if I just put all these pieces together. I love big cities, and I really enjoyed reading The City of Masks, Curse Scroll 6. Curse Scroll 5 includes the Shadowdark, Underdark. Keep on the Borderlands, like the best starting adventure ever. Stonehell is a spine that can take your campaign from levels 1 through 10. And the final ingredient was the Player's Guide to the Western Reaches that just released. It adds a whole bunch of new rules to Shadowdark, as well as like 20 different new character classes. Now, none of these ideas are particularly original. I think I've seen people on maybe the Shadowdark Discord talk about putting the keep on the Borderlands not far from the City of Masks. And I know I've seen old-time bloggers from like back in the day, from my time, talk about replacing the Caves of Chaos with Stonehell. So let's walk through how all these are going to hang together. So the first one is This is a player's map of the Western Reaches. It's not high res. I'm still going to be looking for a more high res map. But the City of Masks is there, and that's described in Curse Scroll 6. And just a couple days east in the Bastion Mountains, I'm going to put the keep on the Borderlands. And so the players can use the keep as a home base, but close enough that we can move back and forth between urban and city play whenever we want. Now let's take a look at the environs of the keep. So the keep's there on the left-hand side of this map. The red circle is the ravine where the Caves of Chaos are. Stonehell also sits in a ravine, so it's a really natural swap out. And this map has always had this mysterious place, the Cave of the Unknown. For this campaign setting, I'm going to make it the mythical entrance into the Shadowdark underworld, Morzo Motha, which is described in Curse Scroll 5. One of the things I love about this is that Stonehell supports high-level play, and Curse Scroll 5 supports high-level play. And so you've got the spine of an entire campaign right here in this little map. Let's take a quick look at the ravines, though. So you can see the surface of the Caves of Chaos and Stonehell are both this west to east ravine, making it very easy to swap out the Caves of Chaos for the upper levels of Stonehell. And like I said, what I really like about this is that I've got the setup to do a campaign from levels 1 through 10, all centered around the keep on the Borderlands with a convenient city nearby. And then as we get more about the Western Reaches, players will be able to hex crawl to other places on the map, and the locus of the campaign will change. But this is like a really easy way to just have an entire level 1 through 10 campaign, like presto. Now, I've said a few times we're doing West Marches in the Western Reaches. These sound confusingly similar. So let's take a second and talk about what are the differences. So West Marches is a style of Sandbox campaign, and I'll dive into the attributes on that. Whereas the Western Reaches is a Shadowdark setting, an official setting for Shadowdark, that's designed so that you can easily play it. It's ideal for playing in a West Marches style campaign. So what is this West Marches style I'm talking about? West Marches was originated by a blogger back in 2007, like the early days of OSR blogging. Ben Robbins, his blog was called Ars Ludi. He wrote a series of articles about grand experiments in the West Marches. And the idea behind the original West Marches was that players would self-organize, identify when they wanted to have a game session, work with the referee to schedule it along with what they wanted to do. So it's a very self-organized, player-driven game. I think West Marches style has certainly evolved that way. And nowadays, I tend to think of it just as an open table format, meaning that you could have a rotating group of players. In my case, I want everyone to have multiple characters so that they can always assemble an effective party. It's a sandbox style, so it's focused on exploration, either hex crawl type exploration or dungeon exploration. Player driven, meaning that the players decide what they want to do. We're going to unpack that a little bit because I think sometimes referees hear player driven and are like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. It's not a lot of work. In fact, it's one of the easiest kinds of campaigns to run. So we'll talk about what that means. But one of the principal things is you have a safe home base. So every adventure starts someplace safe. The players go out, explore. By the end of the game session, they're back home. And that way, if different people are playing the following week, you're all starting from the same spot. And that puts a lot of pressure on the players having a good approach to sharing information. Maybe all the players are part of a guild and they keep archives or records. I think in the original West Marches, they said, we always start and end in a tavern, and the players are carving the map into a table of the tavern, as well as putting notes on the wall or something like that. So information sharing is pretty important. We're going to come into how I got the campaign started, but first, let's take a time out. I'm going to show you how I set up Roll20 to get this campaign going. Okay, everyone, let's take a quick look at my Roll20 setup. So first off, this is the campaign map. I'm still waiting for a high-res version of the Western Reaches. I'm sure we're going to get a good digital version real quick. One thing I've set up for this campaign while we're here, down here in this bottom left corner, I've created a macro for all the players. Let me click on this. You can see it generates a 3d6 down the line ability score, so we can roll characters up right in Roll20. So we've been doing that. I kind of like the macro. And I mentioned I've taken just a very lazy approach with this campaign. All I've done is I've taken these old school product maps, whether it was the Keep on the Borderlands or Stonehell, turned them into images and then scanned them right in. I use, I guess it used to be called Fog of War. Now I think Roll20 calls it Hide and Reveal. I don't bother with dynamic lighting, so I'll show you what the player's view looks like here in a second. So a map like this, all the wilds are like still hidden for the players since they haven't started exploring anything. All they do is they know the area around the keep, and they've made one jaunt out to where the ravine is for Stonehell. And I will replace this map like once I get time to make a color version. So it will no longer say Caves of Chaos. But again, in the interest of speed, getting this campaign launched quickly, I just used really simple scans. We've got the keep itself, and the players have only seen the outer parts of the keep. We've been to the surface level of Stonehell, and they've started exploring the ravine, and they've started exploring like the gatehouse that blocks the ravine. And it probably took me like an hour or two in an afternoon to scan and load all of these maps for the first 5 levels of Stonehell. I'm going to jump into this one because I did want to show you the player's view if you're curious. If you're not using dynamic lighting, as the players move through the dungeon, as the referee, you just reveal areas to them as they move along. These are 10-foot squares. We're not using tokens for the players. I just use a single token that the players can move around to show me like where the party is. So that's a token representing the whole party. If we zoom in, it's got like different characters on it. And that's what they move around. And most of the time we'll attach an aura to it just so they can see how far their light is and where the darkness is. Again, it's a really lazy but yet easy and expedient way to get started playing virtually on something like a Roll20. And this locks me into also a theater of the mind style when it comes to actual combat. So the only token we're using is to represent where the party is when they're doing party movement. But when they move into a room, and if there's opponents and we get into combat, we're going to use the Roll20 dice and everything, but we're doing theater of the mind. And in terms of Shadowdark support, Roll20 does have character sheets, so we can go ahead and see like all the players have character sheets in Roll20. And you know, if you set it up correctly, it'll make an attack, it'll roll damage all at once. It works pretty well. I do want to show you real quick what the player's perspective is. So let me drag in a different Chrome real quick. So the map I just showed you as a referee, this is what the player's version would look like. So they don't get to see all of the map. They only get to see the areas that they've explored and, you know, their view. And again, it's perhaps not as cool as dynamic lighting, but I got an entire campaign pretty much set up in an hour or so instead of, I have no idea how long it would take to try to do walls and dynamic lighting for something as intricate as Stonehell that wasn't created for VTT originally. All right, if you have any questions about my Roll20 setup, drop them in the comments. Let's return to the rest of the video. Okay, so if you're enjoying this campaign video, you want to keep up with the campaign, maybe my lessons learned, deeper dives on some of these topics, please consider subscribing. For everyone who's been here along the way, and my engaged viewers, thank you. I greatly appreciate you guys. Now, let's talk about what I needed to do to get ready for that first game session. So the first thing, believe it or not, was as simple as just coming up with a naming style for all the characters in the keep. If you remember the keep on the Borderlands, none of the characters in the keep have names. They all just have titles like Barkeep, Bailiff, Captain of the Guard, Curate, things like that. And so since this is near the Duchy of Montmar, now Montmar sounds more like Italian or Spanish, I wanted to have names that have that sort of, I guess, Romance language feeling. So I created name tables for various characters and places. And so now we end up, instead of like the merchant guild master, we've got Corvinel, the sweaty merchant, or Hildebrand, who's the adventure recruiter that brings the party together at the beginning. Joffrey, the taciturn curate, now becomes Raimonda della Morella, who's a Templar of Madeira, and so on. The pricklish, elvish advisor to the Castellan, Dandelion. Actually, if you ask him, it's Dandelion. He's very, very picky about his name. This brings some important color to the characters on the keep. And I started the player characters right in the keep, basically in possession of a recruiting notice, ready for that first plot hook. So at the first game session, we started with the player characters outside the Merchants Guild, meeting the merchant and the adventurer, the recruiter, Hildebrand. And everyone is holding one of these post bills. It didn't matter where they came from in the Western Reaches. I let the players just go nuts in terms of creating new characters for this campaign in order to explore what the player's guide has. And the setting is like what it says on the screen. Adventurers wanted for hazardous expedition, low wages, dangerous monsters, long hours of complete darkness, safe return doubtful, but honor, recognition, and fabulous treasures in case of success, and report to Hildebrand. And incidentally, that's a riff on a real recruitment post from the real world. I'm sure some people in the comments will recognize it. But the actual plot hook then that they got from Hildebrand was this. Actually, let me just say timeout. Any of my players are watching this video from this point on, there might be some spoilers, so I would suggest you guys stay out. Thanks. So at the start of the first game session, the Merchants Guild, including the Adventurers Guild, wants to hire adventurers at the Keep on the Borderlands, which I'm calling the Turna Fort, to recover a rare and powerful book that has been kidnapped by the monsters of Stonehell, by raiders of the surface. It's a book of neutral wizard spells called The Primordial Primer of the Wilds. And alignment-based wizard spells are one of the new things in the Player's Guide to the Western Reaches, so I wanted to lean into that theme. The Elven Ambassador in the city wanted to make a grand gift to the wizard school, so had made arrangements for this powerful book of magic to come from Ladonia all the way to the capital city. And now it's terribly embarrassing that his emissaries who are carrying the book have either been killed or kidnapped by monsters, and the book itself is now languishing somewhere in the depths of Stonehell. And what I really like about this plot hook for the player characters as a way to kick off the game is that it'll give them a reason to explore and kind of work their way through the different layers of humanoids that populate the upper levels of Stonehell as they're on the trail of the book. But then outside of the dungeon, it gives them a reason to get involved with the city. They'll have to meet the ambassador at some point. If they're successful, there's opportunities for renown. They'll get involved with the wizard college and meet people there. And because this is an artifact level item, there's the potential for lots of skullduggery. So different factions are going to be interested in this. Besides the Wizards College, there's this group in the City of Masks called the Shroud. They're kind of behind the scenes manipulators who look for powerful artifacts and also seek to undermine and embarrass the Duke. So they don't want this ever to fall in to be recovered or to fall in the hands of the Wizards College. And then there's factions in the Western Reaches too, groups like the Wolves of Ladonia, the Green Knights, even the Adventurers Guild, the Torchbearers, could be involved. Hildebrandt himself is a torchbearer. The players don't know that. But if they ever prove themselves to be successful, he could be, a recruiting point for the players joining that particular faction. And then in order to make the game truly player-driven, you want to introduce a lot of additional plot hooks as well. So what else am I thinking? There's tons that just bubble up as you read Stonehell. The first two on that list are the ones I've just talked about. Ultimately, they're going to have to confront the hobgoblins and try to find or rescue the lost spellbook. But there are these kobolds who live in a little town, and they know tons of information about the upper levels, including how to find different special areas. So they're a great source of side quests. The Wizard College will be interested in something called the Plated Mage. The next set of threats bubbling up from the depth, like in terms of raiders, are the mountain trolls. And then there's a marauding dragon that lives down there. And then there's different secret masters as well. Drow-like denizens that live in the depths of the dungeon that will become rumors. And I skipped over Lachesis or Lachesis, the Medusa. She's an information broker. So I imagine that she'll be able to meddle with the players as well. And this is how a campaign becomes player-driven. The players collect plot hooks as they talk to people and explore. They keep a list of things that they want to do. And from a referee's perspective, a player-driven sandbox is as simple as this. Game session ends. Either you talk to the group then, or as you're scheduling the next game session, hey, we're going to run a game. What are you guys going to do? And that way, as a referee, you just stay one step ahead in terms of prep. So well, we haven't found the book yet, so we're going back to Stonehell. I think we're going to explore level 2 or something like that. Boom, now you know what you're doing. It's that simple to prep. Or, well, we found the book. Now we need to get it safely to the city. We want to try to meet the Elvish ambassador. We've been dying to do some downtime or carousing. Again, boom, you know what the players are going to do. This is the easiest way to construct a sandbox too. Think of it like just dumping all these cool things in a region that you want to play with and run, like raw materials to build adventures out of. Again, I like Stonehell because it's a 10-level mega dungeon that can form the spine of a long campaign, but we're not stuck there. Players can wander, and then I can always introduce reasons for them to come back and try to get into the lower levels. Same with Morza Motha. I love the idea of having a known entrance to the underworld right there in the game, right from the first game session. So that's my vision, is to use Stonehell and Morza Motha as anchors. Let the players do whatever they want. I'll introduce mini adventures. I'm sure we'll do some hex crawling. Just based on the nature of the player characters, they're going to want to travel to other regions. And I'm sure I'll talk about this campaign more, like this West Marches style, and running it in the Western Reaches once we get the Game Master's Guide for the Western Reaches, which probably should be out in the next 1 or 2 months. However, just because of the nature of how I'm going to run this campaign and the episodic quality I'm talking about having rotating players, there are some important house rules and adjustments we need to make. So let's pivot and talk a little bit about those house rules. So I've got the list up here. The first one is I always want to have at least 4 players. We've got somewhere between 7 and 9 players in the pool. I've asked everyone to make multiple characters. So whoever shows up on game night, if our regular priest isn't there, chances are someone in the group has a backup character who's a priest, or if the wizard's not there, or the thief, whatever the case may be. We've already talked about player-driven quests. In this kind of game, it's important to have a note taker. So we use Google Docs. We'll have a rotating note taker. I like Enduring Wounds. It came out in Curse Scroll too. I keep that in all my games now. The idea behind it is if someone takes catastrophic damage and they go to 0 and they're brought back, that there's a chance that they have a lingering effect. And I think that that's an interesting way to counterbalance all the super fast healing you have in modern games. I use a secret death timer. If people get hit while they're dying, that accelerates the death timer. And because we're going to have a rotating cast, I ask the players to be deliberate about how they're going to parcel out magic items. So they're thinking about it right now. The software engineer in our group is like, I've designed an algorithm. Next time we play, we're going to hear all about the algorithm. And then one of the fundamental rules is you got to start and end in a safe place. And then that has some carry-on effects we've got to talk about. West Marches supports fast travel, so that's one of the things. Fast travel will be in effect. And because the game sessions start and end in town, a game session does not represent completing an adventure. So for downtime purposes, just because you return to town doesn't trigger downtime. And I could probably dive into that deeper at some point in the future. And big one, people are going to lose their brain. I'm going to use half-hour torches. So let's talk more about that. So this game, it's a 2-hour game, meaning I typically run this particular campaign on Sunday nights, like 7 to 9. We try to get done at 9 because people got to get up for work early on Monday. We're all middle-aged dudes at this point. And so if you're always ending in town, well, okay, time out a second. If you think about a typical campaign, you're dungeon crawling, you look at the clock, oh, it's 9:15, we got to wrap up. When you have perfect attendance week in and week out, you might just say, okay, guys, you're in room 32. I'm going to make a note, room 32, you got 30 minutes left on your torch timer. Here's the situation, like whatever spells and things are in effect. We're going to freeze the game and pick up exactly in the same spot in a week or in 2 weeks or whatever you play again. But when the players are going to town and returning to town at the end of every game session, it does warp some of these assumptions. Back in the 3rd edition era, we would call this a 5-minute workday problem, where, for instance, if you lose spells, you're always getting a chance to do a long rest and recover all your spells into game sessions. So players will always be going into the dungeon at full power or close to full power for a short game session. So some adjustments I'm going to make. One is half-hour torches so that there is still some resource pressure. I'm going to enforce like resource upkeep. So they're not going to be eating rations in the dungeon, but they'll have to pay for being in the Adventurers Guild. They will always recover lost spells, so that's unfortunate. One of the things I'll do is make luck more scarce. So GM given luck in this campaign, it won't flow freely from me. If they want to play like a bard or a seer and have like a luck machine in the group, that's great. And I've already said that downtime will be a little different because just completing the game session is not enough to qualify for finishing an adventure. I may end up doing a whole video diving into downtime. I think it's a really interesting concept. And maybe there's less priest dependency on healing if the players are only doing these 2-hour jaunts. One thing I haven't talked about yet is monster conversions. Let's take a second and talk about that. So what I plan to do for monsters for the most part, obviously I'm going to run Shadowdark versions. I've said that this is kind of a lazy campaign. I don't intend to go through Stonehell in great detail in advance and convert everything. There are a few really good guides online. I think Future Wolf has one. Maybe it's Night Noon Games has one as well. Like guides to Shadowdark monster statistics so that you can just try to convert on the fly. That's what I'm going to try to do in this campaign. I will say, I do see people say, oh, you don't need it to even convert, just run the OSR stats as is. I'm personally not a fan of that. I think that Shadowdark monsters do hit a lot harder. And like a 4th level old school monster may only get 1 attack, but that same monster in Shadowdark may get multiple attacks around. So more often than not, I'm going to recommend that you at least attempt to run it using Shadowdark assumptions. Otherwise, the players are just going to walk all over the monsters. Let's think about wrapping up. I will be doing another Western Reaches campaign launch really soon. I told you the Curse of Strahd game, we're down to the dying and the crying. It's them or it's Strahd the next 2 weeks. We will have a resolution. And so our next campaign for that group is going to be in the Isles of Andric, Curse Scroll 3. We're going to have Vikings. They're going to explore the Black City. You guys will get to hear all about it. And of course, since I've been running Curse of Strahd for almost 2 years, I'll do a retrospective on it and wrap up my Curse of Strahd video series from way back in the day. We'll talk about the death, the carnage. If any of these things have piqued your interest, I will link to the Curse of Strahd videos up here. You can go back and take a look at Stonehell. That review wasn't that long ago. And for everyone else, thanks for being here. I'll see you guys soon.